All right, so I'm gonna keep my notes on the big book here. Thickness, you know? It looks like it's got some substance to it. That's what we're hoping the student athlete has, substance, okay? Doesn't mean bigger is better. It usually does mean faster is better, but faster doing the wrong thing or inappropriately doing it or ineffectively doing it, again, is not good. I'm gonna put my hat on here because that looks like, makes this look all the more coachy, okay? So the book that we're talking about and some of the stuff we're gonna be pulling out of is from Jim Brown's Sports Talent book. The reason why I bring this book up all the time is because there's a decent base of information in here that's really helpful and applicable to all sports, and it also recognizes some things right off the get-go, and it points them out if you're paying attention. The most important chapters in this book actually are the first 5 chapters. People pay attention for the most part to the other chapters in the book, way more than they pay attention to the first 5. But really the first 5 chapters in this book is where all the good stuff's at. So first of all, the first chapter talks about physical talents, and then they get into mental, and then emotional, and then intangibles. And then I also have a group of 10 that I like to call the sportsness top 10. So there's 4 groups of top 10 for Jim, and then I throw in one that I feel is really, really relevant in today's student athlete environment. So what he's talking about in here is profiling, identifying, recognizing, and spotting those top 10s. So again, that's Jim's book. Why is that important? And it's important to understand meaning of words and the way that things apply to you and your student athlete. And if you don't understand that, you're putting yourself in a disadvantaged position, and here's the reason why. The reason why is if you have a specific talent or skill and that team doesn't need that, it doesn't matter. It's not relevant to them. If you have a particular skill or talent and their team doesn't recognize it, again, it doesn't matter. If it's not something that they perceive they need, it doesn't matter. If it's not something that they currently have on the team, they may need it, but they may not feel like they do. So it's important to understand that you don't go trying to sell ice to people who live, in Alaska. It's not necessary. Sell it to somebody who's on the equator. They're looking to cool off. The person that's in Alaska is not looking to cool off for the most part. So the example is this. The example is you need to know your market. This isn't sales, but it is sales. And you don't want to sell yourself short. You also don't want to oversell yourself. You also don't want to sell yourself on qualities that you don't possess, or that character that is not really yours, or attitude that isn't really yours. You want to be who you are, the best version of yourself, but you don't want to present something that you're not. Just like you wouldn't want to win the admiration or companionship of a partner if you weren't being yourself at the time, because then who are you going to be? And will they love you for who you are when you truly show them who you are? When you were misleading them into thinking that you were somebody else? It's not the same as being on your best behavior, because you need to be the real you in order to give them the best opportunity to make a decision as to whether or not you fit in with their program, with their college, with their system, with their team, with their family. That's what they're looking at you for. So now as we lead into these, I'm going to try to do my best to keep this lesson 15 minutes. It is going to be difficult because it is packed. So here we go. Boom. I got the big book up and I'm taking a look at it. Mental skills evaluation. Mental preparation prior to the game. Pre-competition activity. Emotional readiness. Self-confidence. Quality of effort. Concentration. Consistency of focus. Mental toughness. That could be a whole separate section. It's also misunderstood massively. Ability to let go of mistakes. We see that being one of the biggest issues. Poise, completely misrepresented and misunderstood often. Control of negative thoughts. Enjoyment. Communication with teammates, that's a huge one. That's one that everybody's always looking at. The next one, what aspects of your competition in today's event were you pleased with? What aspects of your competition in today's event were you disappointed with? Those are two good questions to ask to kind of get into this mental skills evaluation, okay? So let's go to the next one. By the way, so like mental preparation. What are you doing prior to the game? Are you doing video review? Are you meditating? What's your pre-game ritual? And hopefully you know what these things are. If you don't know what they are, I mean, then you don't really have anything. Pre-competition activity. What are you doing to get ready before the competition? And how appropriate is it? Important. Self-confidence, emotional readiness. Emotional readiness, are you in a good space? That's what emotional readiness means. When you cross that line, are you bringing baggage with you? Because hopefully you're not, you need to unload that. Self-confidence, obviously we know what that means. That's not very difficult. That doesn't mean false bravado either. That means genuine confidence. Concentration and quality of effort. Quality of effort means you give it the best that you have, and that you sometimes also understand the appropriateness as to the level of effort needed. And I don't mean sandbagging, but I mean understanding where you're at. You might be sick in a situation. You need to know when the most important times are, and you need to know that you don't sprint all out for a ball if you already have the ball and nobody else is there. You need to understand like the way and how of like performing at your best and doing it sustainably. And I don't mean sandbagging. Consistency of focus and concentration, two different things but kind of similar. Concentration, being able to understand what you need to be dialed into. And then consistency of focus. Are you in the game some of the time and then some of the time you're off somewhere else? Mental toughness. Mental toughness really just is like understanding your why and you keeping that at the forefront of what you're doing so that you understand that you need to finish what you started. Ability to let go of mistakes. That means there's an appropriate time to go over things, and it's not while you're still out there supposed to be in the moment. So it's a timeout, it's a time when you can be coached. That's when you focus on that stuff. Poise, we don't need to get too much into poise, but basically it's that ability to be able to be at your best when it's most necessary. Control of negative thoughts means self-talk, making sure that you're not defeating yourself before or self-sabotaging yourself in the moment. Communication with teammates is being really clear on what you're saying and understanding what they're saying and how they communicate so that there's a cohesiveness there and there's an integrity in that communication so that it's not lost in translation and you can be the best. And enjoyment, obviously enjoying what you're doing and putting your best foot forward, and because you're having so much fun, and that enjoyment, that deep embodiment that you have in a situation often ends up creating a higher level of performance. So the next one we got here, emotional talent checklist, which is funny. Drive, obviously drive, we know what drive means. Overwhelming desire to succeed, has something to prove. Passion, loves the game, can stay warm, can't stay away from it. Stability, you can handle stress. Resilience, again, this is emotional. Toughness, good self-esteem, confidence. Positive attitude, enjoys challenges, avoids negative thinking. Realism, works on limitations and learns from experience. It's also very important. Focus, blocks out distractions absorbed in the game. That, again, this is from an emotional standpoint. Effort, first on and off the field, court, and keeps improving. That's key. Persistence, can manage desire to be perfect, but keeps coming, keeps moving forward. And then 10, competitiveness, refuses to lose, likes the battle. That's huge. Persistence is probably one of the most important ones on here, and then competitiveness. Let's go on to physical skills. Size, obviously, that's kind of a no-brainer. Speed, for starters, meets the basic requirements of the sport or the position. That's just the basic requirements, okay? That's just a jumping off point. Quickness, quick feet, always in position. So some of that could have to do with like mentally knowing where you need to be. And then if you can see it before you can do it, you can often do it quicker than you would ordinarily be able to do. Strength, strong enough to play the position or the sport, obviously. Power combines strength with explosiveness. Agility, changes directions or body position while moving. Flexibility, fluid, full range of motion in each part of the body. Obviously, this needs to be, it's important, but it also needs to be like appropriate for the sport. So pay attention to what the sport's needs and requirements are as it relates to all of these. Coordination, hand, eye, foot, general coordination. Again, it has to do with the sport. So a lot of these, they all sound great, but in some sports, it's not necessarily to be exceptional at some of these. Cardiorespiratory fitness, can use oxygen for long periods of time, okay? Vision, can see the entire court, field, area, so on and so forth. Intangibles. This sheet and then the last sheet that we have that we call sportsness are two of the most undervalued and also equally exceptionally appreciated by Division I coaches especially, because these are some of the things that people preach on but that find it difficult to give examples that student athletes can relate to. So I'm gonna buzz through these pretty quick to get this done in 15 minutes, but don't get me wrong, this is exceptionally important and you need to make sure you dedicate time to it and make sure that you try to develop these tangibles and the sportsness within your student athlete. Gets most out of the ability, has a positive influence on teammates, has a nose for the ball, makes big plays, makes teammates better, anticipates, is coachable, adjusts to situations, rises to the occasion, and has killer instinct. So a couple of things. One, the killer instinct is huge, but if the person's not coachable, that makes it very, very difficult. Now, positive influence on teammates is huge, specifically in any team sport, because if you do not have a positive influence on your teammates, you might not be on that team very long. Even if you're the best on the team, the most athletic, the most productive or whatever, but if everybody else kind of like dies around you, if you're poison, if you're toxic, you're not going to be around very long because the team isn't going to thrive. And that's the point, is the team has to thrive, okay? There's very, very few sports where an individual can succeed and the team is kind of okay with it. It's not very often. And the same thing with business, really, and life. So here's the top 10 for our sportsness. Athletic know-how, movement comprehension, sports-specific knowledge. They call this sports IQ. Game knowledge, real-time understanding as to what is going on out there and how it impacts them and their teammates. Positional understanding, knowledge of individual positions. Technical development, that's skill applied to the sport. Strategic capacity, the basic structure applied or concept of function. Tactical adaptability, working within a given strategy on the fly. That's something that very few can do, but the really, really, really high level student athletes can do. Visionary emanation on an infinite level, meaning letting the end come out every day, meaning moving every day towards the vision. Finite or missionary control, meaning the ability to take one goal at a time and not try to pass by these little goals because you're trying to get to the bigger one, meaning like shortcutting things and not doing the little things. That's huge. And then the last one is periodized application. Everything has a time and place, and understanding that is really, really important for the athlete. Not saying the wrong thing at the wrong time, and then understanding when is the right time and place to ask questions or do things is critical. So I hope these groups of 10, all 5 were helpful for you and for your athlete. Have a great night.